what I'm doing for my PhD. From undergrad, I did management.
So is there a particular focus in that within
Yes,
computer science?
it's in this area of artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we'll see how the thesis goes and everything. So it's still not yet specific. I haven't decided a specific thesis as such, but it's in an area of artificial intelligence.
Wonderful. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I just saw something that said now they're really talking about robots having consciousness. Did you see that?
I know they have been talking about this since the last 50 or so years since.
But now they're saying some breakthrough or something.
It's just the same old thing.
Same old.
Just the better
Simulated.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at how easily they fail in many cases.
There's seats up here also if anybody wants to come. No singing group today, huh?
Yeah.
This was kind of an unannounced visit.
Yeah.
Not unannounced, short.
Short announced, yeah.
Not unannounced.
Short notice. Short notice.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was so thrilled. I said, oh my God, month of January will go away without any Swami coming here. So I'm so thrilled,
No, it's all because Mahayogananda couldn't come to us.
Yeah.
Then I was free to come here.
That's good.
Guys can come a little forward.
We can start.
Okay. Do you remember?
আবার ভারতে ভারতীর বীণা ওই শুনো গাহে মধুরতা মরণ সুক্তি মগন পরাণ আবার করিছে চেতনা দান আবার ভারতে ভারতীর বীণা ওই শুনো গাহে চেতনাদান এসো মা ভারতী পরশের পরে নিরানন্দ এই আঁধার কুটিরে এসো মা ভারতী পরশের পরে নিরানন্দ এই আঁধার কুটিরে অশ্রু সলিল সিক্ত রিক্ত দুরিত পূরিত শোকে পেলাম বেদনা আছে মাগো শুধু পূজা উপহার করিতে দান আবার দান আবার ভারতে ভারতীর বীণা ওই শুনো গাহে মধুর তান মরণ সুক্তি মগন পরাণ আবার করিছে চেতনা দান
I had cataract surgery a few weeks ago. Good news is that I can see things at a distance better. Bad news is my glasses don't work at all. And I have trouble reading anything.
Do you have readers, only readers?
Huh?
After the surgery, you don't only need readers to read. So you don't have the readers?
I have a little astigmatism, so they'll have to do a correction for everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so that just to warn everybody.
You have both of them. I have both,
They both.
both and then I can
Yeah.
see, but before reading I have to put a reading.
Class.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'll get my new glasses soon, next week.
Yeah, I had stigmatism and they
Uh-huh.
put a torso
They
lens,
can give it lens that'll, but I just got the regular lens.
but still the power did not come to 0. Yeah, from 7 it came to 2.5.
Ah, okay. Alright. So you still need glasses.
Yeah, I have to wear glasses.
Okay, the topic, this is actually a New Year's topic, because this is almost New Year's, a few days after New Year's. And we talk very glibly about making New Year's resolutions, but it's a serious thing. And this is a good time to do it. It's a little bit arbitrary, January 1st, but a very standard thing. And a good time for us to look back on the past year and for us to try to figure out what we did right, what we did wrong, what we can do better, and to make some type of resolution. So the topic of this talk is reflection, resolution, and change. January 1st is rather an arbitrary time to have New Year's Day. If we think about it, I don't know, does anybody know how they come up with this calendar? Most traditions, New Year's Day, it'll be New Moon Day. It may be the harvest time or springtime, something like that. January 1st, it's just, I don't know.
It has to do with the Roman thing.
It's the Roman calendar.
Yeah, and so it has to do with
Yeah.
with this.
The Roman calendar is very strange.
Yeah.
September, anybody know how to say 7 in Spanish? Siete. And anybody know how to say 8? Ocho. September, October. How about 9? 9. November. How about 10?
That's 10.
December. So December should be the 10th month. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. September, October, November, December. Right? So somehow they got all mixed up. They had to add another 2, huh? Then what is enero?
Enero is January.
Yeah. What is that? What that mean?
Enero is no.
Anyhow, it's a good time for us. I actually base this talk on a couple of different things. One, many of you know that I grew up in a Jewish tradition. And in most societies, most cultures, this beginning of the new year is a very serious thing. In this country, in this culture, for some reason, it's a time to have a big party and to drink too much and to watch some big ball come down at midnight and everyone singing Auld Lang Syne that nobody knows what it means. Huh? Anybody know what it means?
That old things go, old lands.
For old time's sake. Okay, something like that. Yeah.
That was into that.
Yeah. In the Jewish tradition, this is the holiest time of the year. It's called Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the new year. There's a 10-day period called the Days of Awe. And it's a 10-day period of reflection and atonement, the things we did wrong, we pray for forgiveness for that, and then it ends with Yom Kippur. And this is when we take a vow to do better. So this is a nice tradition. We can do it if we're serious about a New Year's resolution. It's not simply I'll exercise more and this and that. It should have some spiritual content to it. So I think it's a nice time for us to reflect on the past year and to see what we can do to change somehow and make a resolution with firm resolve. Now, January 1st is very special in our tradition for another reason. We all know Kalpataru. This is the first year here for a while that you didn't have puja, huh? Because Swami Mahayogananda couldn't come. Everybody knows about Kalpataru Day?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we had small
You had a
celebration.
small service here, yeah. This is especially observed in our Kashipur Center, of course, because this is where it took place. I went once only, all my different trips to India, and there'll be a line of people from early morning, waiting, for hours just to get in and see Tupper's Road there and everything. And for those who don't know, that on the last January 1st of Swami Krishna's life, when he was suffering from the throat cancer, he felt a little better, and he decided to go for a walk. And there were many devotees there because January 1st was a holiday because it was in British. So they celebrated New Year's at that time. And Girish Ghosh was there. And Girish used to go around telling everybody, really publicizing that Sri Ramakrishna was an avatar. So Sri Ramakrishna said to him, why do you keep saying this? What have you seen that you make these big statements and everything? And Girish was a very poetic person, a very dramatic person and everything. So he said, what can I say about one whom Valmiki and Vyasa were incapable of describing? So Valmiki, of course, this means Ramayana and Rama. So he's comparing him to Rama. And Vyasa with Mahabharata and Krishna. So a very beautiful way of saying that we look upon you as equal to Raman and Krishna. So what more can we say? So Thakur, he was charmed and he went into an ecstatic mood and he touched everybody. He said, Chaitanya Hok, may you be illumined, and they had all these different experiences. So January 1st also has a very special meaning for us because he became the Kalpataru. Now, when we read in the Great Master, Swami Sharadananda, he didn't like this Kalpataru. He said the Kalpataru will give whatever you wish for. Thakur only, so that means if we want a lot of money, we can get a lot of money. But Thakur, he would only give us spiritual things. So he gave it different, he called it the revelation of divinity and the offering of freedom from fear and something like that. He gave that explanation. So it's a very special time of year for us to think about what our priorities are in life, what's important to us, and to try to think what can we do to be more serious about life. And if we have these spiritual goals, then how do we live up to these things? And how possible is it for us to change? And how much do we want to change? So this is what we mean by reflection. Now, reflection has many different meanings in the Vedantic tradition. Generally, by reflection, we'll use this term manana. In the Vedantic sadhana, Vedantic sadhana means it's a path of knowledge. If we say jnana yoga, jnana marga, then we have three things. This shravana, manana, nididhyasana. The type of spiritual practice that's done in this, from the Upanishadic period, and following this path of jnana yoga, is not normally what we think. Our type of sadhana, we have our mantra that we repeat, we do puja and all of that. It was really a type of mental thing. Of course, the student had to serve the guru, and the student had to practice austerities and lead a very simple life and everything, but other than that, it was mostly a mental type of thing. So Shravana meant hearing the truths of the Upanishads from the Guru. And these were generally in Mahavakyas. So we have 4 Mahavakyas. Anybody know them? Aham Brahmasmi.
Yeah.
One.
That's it.
No.
Though art.
Tattvamasi. Huh? And I am Atma Brahma. Pragyana Brahma. Now, we say that these are 4, but actually any of these great statements. Mahavakya means a great statement. And this is what Shankaracharya chose really as the 4, because each of the different mats in India, the 4 main mats of the Shankaracharya order, have one of these Mahavakyas, and each one belongs to a different Veda of the 4 Vedas. But the idea is that when the student is right, when the mind is right, and the student has been serving the Guru for some years, and the Guru feels the time is right, that the Guru simply has to say, Tattvamasi, thou art that. You are that reality. And then the disciple has to practice manana. This is reflection. What does it mean? When the Guru says you, who is this me that he's talking about? And when he says tat, what is that reality? If this reality tat is that infinite absolute Brahman, transcendent beyond everything, then how am I that? And if this I means this ego, how can I say this ego is one with that ultimate reality? So this reflection takes place. That by I, it must not mean this personality, it must mean something deeper. And when we talk about it as Brahman, it must mean this pure consciousness. So this is the practice of manana, reflection. And then once we have this understanding, what this really means, then we go deeper into Nididhyasana. We have to try to feel, what does it really mean? That I have to completely rid myself of any idea of individuality. I have to feel myself one with that infinite reality. So this is that, we call it meditation, but it's not meditation as we know it, with our type of mantra. The meditation is a little different type of thing. So this is that manana, reflection. Now, the other type of reflection is really what I want to stress today. And that reflection is a personal type of reflection. So we're not thinking about who is this real self. Now we're talking about me. We're talking about this foolish person who does also wrong things and has also faults and is filled with bad ideas and all of the human faults. We're talking about our human nature now. And because none of us are perfect, and we all have good qualities, we have bad qualities. Sometimes we're a little bit lazy, we don't do our homework on time. Sometimes we spend too much time with the computer games and things like that, and gossiping, all sorts of things. So this is that type of reflection. Swami Brahmananda, first president of our order, he said that it's good every day, every night before we go to sleep, to spend a little time looking back, how did we spend the day? Just to reflect. Did we waste our time? Were we serious? Were we sincere in what we did? Were we kind to other people? Not that we want to spend all the time self-analyzing. We get too wrapped up in this ego at that time. But just a little bit. Just so we keep account. We monitor ourselves. So it's good to do this throughout the year, but at the beginning of the year, it's nice just to take this as a special period when we can really make some type of resolution to change what things we don't feel are helpful about ourselves. So we have to avoid this idea of having a bad self-image. We want to be confident about ourselves. We want to like ourselves. But at the same time, we want to be honest with ourselves and sincere and see what things we can try to change about ourselves. Now, what I did, I wrote these notes up many, many years ago, and what I based this talk on is something a little bit surprising, probably for all of you. The vows that we take when we take brahmacharya. Now, many people are curious. They say, "Well, what type of vows do you take?" Brahmacharya is the first stage. When we become monks, we have a brahmacharya period, and then we have a final sannyas period. So when we join, we practice brahmacharya, but we take vows of brahmacharya after 4 or 5 years, depending. And people very often are curious, what are the vows that we take? Very commonly in monastic life, especially in the West, the vows will be poverty, chastity, and obedience. Now, the vows that we take are actually not those type of vows. There are all these different verses that were composed by Swami Ramakrishnananda, very beautiful verses, very practical things, all about these type of resolutions, sankalpa. The Sanskrit word we take a resolution for something, it's a type of sankalpa. We know sankalpa has another meaning. Sankalpa is also when the mind is wandering and running around and everything, but this is another meaning. So I found that all of these verses and these vows that we take at the time of brahmacharya are applicable to everyone. And they really fit in exactly with this idea of reflecting back on the way we lead our lives, the standards that we have for ourselves and everything, and this idea to take a resolve to change. So everything you're going to hear from now on will be based on, I won't read the actual verses or anything, but will be based on these very inspiring verses that were composed by Swami Ramakrishnananda for this brahmacharya ceremony. We can break these down into different categories. So, and this is the way it's presented to us at the time of brahmacharya. There are certain vows about spiritual practice. So we'll take a certain type of resolution that we'll do our practice according to instructions we got. So spiritual practice. Then virtues and qualities that we want to try to cultivate in our lives. This is the second category. And then dealing with other people. How do we relate to other people with kindness and love and compassion and everything. And finally, ultimate goal of life. Because this will be the overriding thing. We know Sri Ramakrishna stressed this idea that we have 4 words in Bengali that we find over and over and over again in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Ishwar Lav, Jivana Uddeshya. That God realization, attainment of God, is the goal of life. It was said many, many times. It's one of the most common things that we read there. Okay, so the first vow that we take. Hello. Yeah. What's his name?
Namish.
Okay. Yeah. To be regular in spiritual practice. Now, this is something that we take for granted that we should do, but we have to ask ourselves, how many of us are really regular in our spiritual practice? And of course it depends on what type of instructions we get at the time of initiation. Usually the instructions we get are very minimal. If we do 1 round of japa, that's enough. But if we're very serious about spiritual life, we have to give ourselves a certain amount of time. We should have a certain routine. We should try to get up the same time, if possible, every morning. Give ourselves a good period of time. Best if we can do our spiritual practice at least twice a day. Most people, 3 times is impossible. But in all of our Southern California centers, we have 3 periods, meditation periods. And, at least early morning, And then in tradition, in India and other places, of course, is sunrise and sunset. That there's something special about these periods, that is very quiet time and everything. And early morning is a time when we won't be disturbed much by other people. Let them sleep. We'll get up while everyone's still sleeping, very quiet, peaceful time. So this idea of being very regular in our spiritual practice is extremely important. Swami Swanandaji, he had an expression that I must have heard, I don't know, dozens and dozens of times. He was, bind yourself to a routine. Yeah, he said it many times. Bind yourself to a routine. Now, we think spiritual life, what does it have to do with bondage? We want to get rid of bondage. We don't want to be slaves to something. We have to get up to, but it's actually liberating. That we do it automatically, there's no question. We get up at a certain time, we do our spiritual practice. We don't have to make a decision, so the mind is free. Otherwise, we wake up in the morning and we think, let me sleep in this morning, I'll get up early the next morning. Or we go to bed late one night, we say, I'll set my alarm later and everything. If we don't question that, then it gives us a different type of freedom. We're freedom from this burden of trying to decide whether we should get up or not get up. We do it. And it becomes something very valuable to us. I look upon spiritual practice, sadhana, that our spiritual practice, as like the mother giving birth to a child, that it has to be nourished and protected and looked after and really safeguarded. That it should be something very precious to us, our spiritual practice, our sadhana, so that we feel bad if we miss it. This is one of the tests. One test of progress in spiritual life. If for some reason it's impossible for us to go to the shrine, do our meditation any morning, we feel that we've missed something very valuable. So this is that very first thing that we resolve to be very regular in our spiritual practice. Then the virtues. Now we all know what we all want to acquire these sattvic qualities, these different types of virtues. The ones that are emphasized here are we must above all be calm, peaceful, and cheerful at all times. Now we may ask why. Why do we want to do this? Of course, we don't need a big answer for that. It's kind of an obvious thing. But if we understand that our real nature is Satchidananda, Satchidananda, what does that mean, Satchidananda? Sat means? Huh? Truth. Anything else? Honest. Sat means existence. Now when we say Satchidananda, we're talking about Brahman from that point of view. So it means existence. Chit means consciousness. Ananda, bliss. Now, but you were all right. Your answers were all actually good. When we talk about it, if that's my nature, and I want to manifest that Sat, then I have to be truthful. I have to be honest. I have to be good. I have to be kind. That's the Sat stands for the Sattva. We have to develop sattvic qualities. Then Chit. Chit means consciousness, but it'll mean wisdom and knowledge. I have to be a thoughtful person. I have to consider things very carefully. And Ananda, that bliss, that means I should be cheerful. I should be happy. Happiness is my real nature. Why are we not happy? Because something covers it. Something is blocking it. Something is preventing it. If we eliminate all of those things, then our nature is just to be happy. If we stop and think about it, that we're happy at times when there's nothing preventing it. That we just finished our exams, we did this is nothing, we were worried about something, and then that's over, and then relief. Because that's our real nature. So all of these virtues go back to this idea of Satchidananda. We can think about that. Cheerfulness, Swamiji emphasized this cheerfulness. He said if any day you don't feel cheerful. He said, stay in your room. Don't make other people look at your long face. Yeah, why subject them to having to see somebody with a
Contagious.
dark face? Yeah, it's contagious in a way.
Contagious.
Yeah. So, yeah, spiritual life doesn't mean wearing a long face and looking like we just lost our best friend. Yeah. Sometimes we think, oh, we have to be very serious in spiritual life. We see these great souls, as some of the parts of senior swamis and everything, always cheerful.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And this joy is just emanating from them, and we can really feel it. Yeah. So Swamiji said, if you can't be cheerful, better stay in your own room. Yeah. Then speech, we have to pay a great deal of attention to the things that we say, how we say them, the people that we say them to, why we say them, and to understand how damaging and hurtful speech can be if we're not careful. When we're little kids, we have this expression that sticks and stones might break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite. Words can hurt us much more than sticks and stones. Yeah. So we have to be very careful about that. We know how much Ramakrishna emphasized truthfulness. He said in this Kali Yuga, this is the main austerity. If we can practice perfect truthfulness for 12 years, we can realize God. Now, what does it mean to be truthful?
Honest to yourself.
To be honest.
In mind, in thought, speech, and action. So whatever we say, whatever we think,
Bonmug act. Yeah, the Thakur used to say, yeah, that what we're thinking is what we don't think one thing and say another thing. But if we really think about truthfulness, there's a very high bar. Every time, suppose that you hit me and you slap me in the hand. I say, you hit me. Is that a truthful statement? Find the self. See, I've identified myself with the body. Huh? Is it truthful? See, from the highest point of view, we're leading an authentic life. We're not practicing this truthfulness when we become identified with the lower self. So it depends how we want to take it. In truthfulness, it's not such a simple thing. And we know that it has to be priyahita, that it can't simply be something that's true if it's unkind and if it's unhelpful to somebody else. One of our old monks in Trabuco, he used to, actually he would scold me sometimes. Suppose I would say something that I shouldn't say, or I was too critical or something. He would say, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
yes.
This was the test.
When
That's
they
the
say three
test.
gates,
Yeah.
one has to pass 3 gates
Yeah.
before you say something.
Yeah. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
Yeah.
Now, the true part, that also depends on how we express things. Very often, we can say something that we know, saying it in such a way that it's not a lie, but it's giving the wrong impression. And is it kind? We have to. So, are there times when we can be untruthful?
We shouldn't be, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like when we say things, we sort of perceive it in a different way, right? But what comes out is very different.
There was a letter that was written by our Swami Parmesanand. Well, I refer to him very much, the Holy Mother's disciple. And he was talking about his honesty, and he said that there was a case that he knew of that had happened during his time, where there were communal riots, and the people had attacked this one family, and a little girl was there, and they were trying to get the women there. So he asked her, is your sister home? And this little girl, she said it loud. She said no. The sister was actually upstairs. No, my sister went to the village to come here, so that they went away. So then Swami Parmesanand, he said, God bless that lying little girl.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
He saved the life. Yeah. So there are rare occasions, of course, when we can do it. Otherwise, we try to keep to this truthfulness. But now necessary. This is also very, very interesting. When we analyze why we say things, why we actually we're thinking a thought, and then we have a decision to make. Do I want to express this thought, or do I not want to express it? Is there any need for me to make sure that other people know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling? Is there any necessity for that? And we can be very truthful about things, but we're trying to give an impression. See, speech is our way of letting people see who we are, which can't be seen. Nobody can see into our mind. The only access they have into that is through speech when we express it. So most of the time, when we say things, it really means, look at me. This is who I am. This is I want you to think of me as being this type of person. So a lot of it is just, what is our motive? Motive for speaking. We want people to think we're intelligent. We want people to think we're nice, that we're kind people and everything. And half the time, we're better off not saying anything at all. And we find that sometimes the very, very sattvic people, they don't say much at all. And they don't feel that need to have everybody know what they're thinking or how good they are and how kind they are. They'll go out of their way so that people don't know. This is all part of this austerity of speech. So it's very good. Sometimes we feel this urge to say something. We should ask ourselves, what is my motive? Why do I really want to say this and have people? I'm giving an impression of myself. I want people to think of me in a certain way. So these are all it's a very high bar, of course. Although this is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If we really go through all of this, we'll find that we don't say much at all. That we'll spend a lot more time in silence. And silence is really communion with the self or communion with the God. People who take vows of silence, sometimes we say, well, their mind is still active. They're just not talking. Doesn't matter. It's still something very helpful. That the mind may be active, but then we say, we remind ourselves that no one else has to know. No one's business. I don't care what they think. So a lot of it has to do with the speech is what type of impression we're trying to give to other people so that they think of us in a certain way. Usually they think of us in a positive way. That we want to, half the time we're trying to impress people. And we can do it by being honest, but not being 100% honest. We're not telling a lie, but we know that there's some other motive behind it. So anyhow, this is all very helpful, and this is, to practice silence is a very nice thing. And we get to observe the mind. And some people are very simple. They'll say whatever they're thinking. This is also a good quality. This being guilelessness. We say the guilelessness is not a bad thing. But when we're a little bit clever and we say things for effect, we should try to analyze the mind and to try to see why we do this. So this is all. Be careful about our speech. Then, next thing we're taught is moderation. That one of the great themes of Gita, of course, that we don't do too much of something or too little with regard to food, with regard to sleep, with regard to even austerities, to practice this middle path. But to have some type of self-control. This self-control, what are the benefits of self-control? Another interesting question.
You just purify the mind. You become you exercise the willpower to control your senses and your mind. It's your decision whether, so this needs an exercise to control your emotions, control your,
But what is the benefit of it?
You have same
What is the
as
you
result?
want them to have more
It's-
control of the mind and the senses.
Yeah, is that just in itself?
So you're removing the dirt basically.
Yeah,
Trying to remove the
Okay.
dirt so that you're in alignment with
yeah,
It helps you choose what is right versus giving to your impulses.
right,
So it's
Like you might like something,
yeah,
but if you're able to control yourself, you can say, hey, this may not be good for me versus
okay.
not good. And
These
choose
are
the
all
right
good,
thing.
all good answers, but what I'm getting at is it's something that it's not just an obvious thing, but self-control leads to self-respect. We feel good about ourselves. People who have no self-control with regard to food, with regard to speech, with all sorts of things, deep down, they don't have that same good positive self-image. If we feel that we're in control of ourselves, then this self-respect comes.
So discipline is another word for that.
If we lead a disciplined life,
Disciplined
yeah,
life, yes.
yeah. And we feel good about ourselves. This is important. We say, well, who cares if you feel good about yourself? No, it's important in ordinary life and spiritual life. See, this is something that is applicable to everyone, whether they're interested in spiritual life or not. That there are certain things, especially we read Gita. There's one verse that I like very much in the Gita, that it says that those who can withstand this pull of the passions, kama, krodha, and all that they can withstand all of that, they're not at the mercy of all of these passions. These are the yogis, yuktaha. But it says these are also sukhi naraha, happy people. Yeah. So we, even if we don't have any higher spiritual goals, I'm not doing it for God realization or anything else, but we'll feel good about ourselves. If we have
It yields its own fruit.
it yields its own fruit. We
That's
don't
right,
have to,
yeah.
exactly. So this idea of moderation, self-control, not being at the mercy of the passions, because they make us do things we don't want to do. There's another beautiful section from Gita, I refer to this all the time, that Arjuna asked this very interesting question. He says, why do we do things that we don't want to do? Why do we do bad things? Why do we do sinful things when aniccan, I don't want to do it? Baladiva niyotisi, as if I'm being forced by some external thing. Why do I do it? And the answer is because of kama, krodha, because of anger and greed and passions and all of these other things, that they take away our freedom and make us do things we don't want to do. If we feel we've lost our freedom, how can we have self-respect? How can we have happiness? So these are things that are very practical in ordinary life, whether we have a spiritual goal or not. Those people who can lead a disciplined life, who are not always running around after desires and trying to fulfill enjoyments and everything, these are happy people, generally. Those who are not always running after something, more money, more enjoyment, more power, these will be happy people. Those who can lead a simple life, they're happy with simple things, moderation, generally happy people.
So Miji,
Yeah.
the thing is, all these things come under Godsic qualities and little bit tamasic. So the thing is to control them, to in a way to suppress them and to control them so that you rise to sattvic.
The discipline and the theory is that we overcome tamas with rajas. We overcome rajas with sattva. This was Swamiji's theory. Gita also talks about that. Yeah, everything we're talking about here is eliminating tamas and rajas and trying to develop sattvic qualities. Yeah. So there are different ways of doing it. Sometimes we simply have to use self-control. Sometimes we have to, Thakur says, give a twist. We have these desires, make them desires for God realization. We have a problem a little bit with anger. We can be angry with ourselves for not practicing, these higher ideals and things. So some things we try to twist, some things we put in a new direction, some things we just eliminate. Yeah, but this spiritual life is transformation. Spiritual life is not simply, I'll sit and meditate and I'll have some spiritual experience. We have to transform ourselves. We sometimes forget that character is the essential thing in spiritual life. That we have to develop a sattvic type of character. We have to have these very pure qualities and pure motives and everything if we want to make any progress in spiritual life, and if we want to be happy, and if we want to be content in this world. So sometimes we say, oh, we have to go beyond all the gunas. Forget about that. We have to attain the sattva first. See, it's like this ladder that now we're in the middle of this tamas and rajas. There's a little sattva, of course. We can't say that I want to go to the roof. We have to go step by step by step. That means we have to reach this sattva. We have to become good people. We have to be loving people, compassionate, kind people, before we can go beyond that. For most of us, going beyond that is God's grace. We can't worry about that. Our goal is to try to become sattvic people. Not the ultimate goal, but this is we know that this is how we make progress in spiritual life. If we think progress in spiritual life is a question of mind control, that all I have to do, doesn't matter what I do in this world, I can be a rascal, but if I can sit down and control my mind, I can have samadhi. It doesn't work that way. The mind will pull these bad habits and these passions, they'll pull the mind down. They won't allow the mind to go higher. So this transformation of character is essential in spiritual life. This is why our shamadhamma, all of these things are always taught. These ethical and moral principles are always taught as preliminaries. They have to be done first. Okay, so this was, what did we just do? Moderation. Then we resolve to try to see the best in others. This is, of course, a Holy Mother's teaching, not to look for faults in other people. If we have to look for faults, we look at our own faults. There's something called PNPC. Huh? Anybody know what this is? Is this just a Bengali thing?
Yeah, Paraninda Paracarcha.
Huh?
Paraninda Paracarcha.
But only Bengalis know this little acronym.
Don't know.
Yeah, PNPC.
I'm sure there's a translation for that, I'm
But,
sure.
yes. This means Paraninda Paracharcha.
Ah,
So this means talking about people behind their back and
Yeah.
criticizing people.
yeah.
Yeah,
Linda is yes.
Then
Yes.
we understand.
criticizing people. Charcha means,
What they got done.
did you see what this person did? And,
Yeah,
well, why did they do that? And,
Yeah.
yeah. So PNPC, yeah.
Yeah, Ma Sarda used to say, if you want to be happy, don't do that.
Yeah, no, this is a very important,
Very
and
important.
this is a very important point that I want to go.
Yes.
It's the same thing I was saying before. We have to remember that Holy Mother, she doesn't say, don't see the faults of others. She says, Jodi Shanti Chao Ma. If you want to be peaceful, if you want to be happy, she's not saying it as a moral imperative that, oh, it's evil, you'll go to hell, this and that. Not like that. But these things keep us from being happy. This is very important. That, as I said before, forget about God realization. That she's not saying that. If you want to realize God, then don't find fault in others. If you want peace of mind, my child, don't see the faults of others. So this is one of the vows that we take. Not just we don't see the faults, we try to see the good in other people. We always say everybody has something good about them. So we try to look at the good and overlook the bad thing. This is what we mean by being charitable. Take a charitable view of people. If they have some bad qualities, then they say, they're either born with these or they had some experiences, they had some bad things happen. Well, we take a charitable view. I always try to think, if we see, take the worst person, that somebody's a mass murderer, and we look at their childhood and how they grew up and everything, we think, if I had grown up in that environment that would I have been any better? So it means a charitable point of view. So, they say there's honor among thieves. Even among the worst people, there'll be some type of good quality, that at least they'll be loyal to each other. So try to find see the best in others. Yeah, this was really Holy Mother. This was her main thing. She said, I cannot see others' faults. I'm simply not made that way. There are enough people always ready to criticize others. Surely the world will not come to an end if I refrain from doing so. Okay, so this is that try to see the best in others. Then avoid self-praise or seeking praise from other people. We should be content if we do something that we feel was a good thing to do. Then why do we care if other people will praise us and thank us for it? That should be enough reward. That we worry too much about what other people think of us, and we want gratitude for everything. Swamiji had that beautiful statement that when we do anything that we feel is helping someone else, that they should stand up and allow us to help. We should bow down before them in gratitude for the privilege of helping them. Not that we should think that, oh, you're not going to thank me for what I did. No, that story of Rockefeller, with Swamiji and Rockefeller, that Rockefeller at that time was the wealthiest man in the world, probably, but was stingy. He never gave anything in charity. So he came to see Swamiji, somehow in Chicago, I think, and Swamiji was saying something to him about why not use this money for some good cause, something like that. And he was a little indignant, and he left. Then he thought about it, and then he came back and he wrote a big check. I think it was for he founded the University of Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago University.
Yeah. So he put that and he put it in front of Swamiji and said, see what I've done. So Swamiji looked at it, he looked up, and he said, aren't you going to thank me for that? So Swamiji said, it is you who should thank me. Yeah, because he's giving him that privilege of serving other people. Yeah.
Finding peace within
And
himself.
finding joy and peace for that, yeah.
So we refer this story, I mean, but I have a chance met his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and some of the charitable kind. They don't know anything about it.
No.
So I'm the one, I told them, so, we don't know, we have to look into that. So, I'm just thinking they, perhaps, he
Yeah.
never made a point to tell any of his family,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So anyhow, this is that next item, that we shouldn't care about self-praise, what other people say about us. Again, this goes back to that ego idea,
Yes.
that we're identifying ourselves with this lower self, lower personality. But show respect to everyone. We have this beautiful hymn of Chaitanya, that be patient and forbearing like you treat all of that. And then that line, amanina manadena. So amanina, this is if someone doesn't care about taking any praise, doesn't care about that. Manada, but gives praise to everybody else. Shows respect to everyone, doesn't care if anybody respects him. This is the person who's fit to worship God. Kirtaniya sadahari. A very nice idea. So this type of humility, and again, the same thing that we said about the things that we say, we're trying to impress people. The things we do, we try to impress people. We shouldn't care about that. We give something, we make a big donation to something, and we'll see everybody wants a name on the side of the building. Everyone wants a plaque. Anyway, we go to some of our temples in India, and the whole wall filled with all the names of people, how much they gave in donation and everything. Yeah, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. And lots of times it's in the name of a loved one, not their own name. It's okay. But there'll be some who don't care if anybody knows. They'll purposely not want people to know. And because giving it, that's its own reward. They don't care about anything else. So this is that avoid self-praise. Then, with the whole section on action, on work, on karma, that we have to pay attention to the way we live in the world, the way we work in the world. That live consciously, act skillfully. That we have to think before we do things. We have to look at all the ramifications of everything. We sometimes get this wrong idea that we shouldn't be attached to the fruits of action, so we don't care about the results. A very wrong idea. That if we do anything, we want it to be successful. That's not karma yoga. Why isn't it karma yoga? Why do something if we don't want it to be successful?
Because our motive to work is to get success.
The motive of work is not for us to be successful, but for the job to be successful.
Right.
Yeah. So suppose we're a scientist and we want to find a cure for cancer. And we have some big experiment and it fails. What we say? I don't care, I really didn't care about the results. Of course we won't say that. Huh? But if we get the results and we say, and now I'll be very famous, I'll make a lot of money. Yeah, this is what we want to avoid, that ulterior motive. But if we do something, then we have to do it with great care. If we do it as an offering to God, we have to do it with great love and with great devotion. And to really attention to detail. In our order, Ramakrishna order, there's tremendous emphasis on action, on doing everything with great attention to detail. We have this word nikunt. I like this word.
What's the word?
Nikunt.
Nikut.
Yeah, nikunt. It means
Heartless.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. With some degree of perfection. There's so many stories about these things. I'll just tell one story. Our Swami Shankaranandaji, that he was president of the order. He used to go around. Many of the presidents did this. They would go around and watch every department, especially what the brahmacharis, young monks, are doing. And he saw them peeling vegetables, and they were peeling potatoes. And he saw that they weren't very careful about it. They're taking some of the potato along with the skin. So he said to them, they didn't know what's going on. He said, you bring all of these peelings to me, to bring them to my room. He didn't know what's happening. So he in his room, and he took a knife, and the peeling, he took the skin, whatever little flesh of the potato was left, he cut that off, and he made a little potato curry, and he said, now bring them in here and tell them to offer this in the shrine to Thakur. So that they would know if they're going to do something, don't waste anything, and don't be sloppy about anything. Pay attention to detail. Why? Because work is worship. Work is worship. Now, in this brahmacharya vows, we had one expression that everyone was wondering about. Apalodayat. This is a Sanskrit word. Apalodayat. It means apala and udaya. So up until the time that it reaches maturity, it ripens to the sun rises. So we said we're not supposed to worry about the ultimate result. But the point is that if we start a job, we have to finish it, go to the very end. That means that we finish the job, we clean up afterwards, we get everything the way it was before, everything to the end. Then if it's not successful, we accept it. That it wasn't God's will, we just accept it that way, without any attachment or anything. But we have to finish everything that we start, and be very careful about the way that we do it, what our attitude is, do it with love and devotion and care. And one of the reasons is that the same mind that's working is the same mind that will be doing meditation. And if we can keep the mind controlled and in meditative mood, and see, Thakur says 15%, 25% of the mind you give to the work, 75% to God, you'll be better than most people. So this is that we train the mind. And then if work is worship, then life, 100% of life is sadhana, spiritual practice. There's not any division between our spiritual life and our secular life. Okay, so I'm coming to the end. Yeah, then this of course is attitude towards others, that when we work for other people, There's a particular type of karma yoga that we have to see God in the others and really feel that this is the highest type of worship. This was really, I think, the most important contribution that Swamiji made. This is really the essence of his practical Vedanta, that this is the highest worship of God, is service to all of humankind. He has a beautiful poem, that the living God, that break all other idols. Wherever you go to see God, God is standing before you in the form of the poor, in the form of the unlearned, the downcast and everything. You serve them. This will be the highest type of worship of God. So this is very important within our order, the type of social service work that we do, working in the hospitals. We had one Swami, Bon Bihari Maharaj, that he spent a whole lifetime in this hospital ashram in Benares. And he would go and he would wash the wounds of these patients, that they would be all full of pus and terrible smell and everything. No one else could go there. He would always do it. And whenever he would ask the young monks that, how was the work going, if they would say that, yesterday I saw this one patient, and he said, no. You don't see patients, you see Narayana. You always would say that. Never say that you went to see a patient, you saw Narayana himself. And there's a tradition that once a year they'll actually go and do arati before the patients, wave some lights and everything, and really type of worship to remind themselves that this is the highest type of worship. So this is an attitude towards others. Then finally, the goal of life. That is the ultimate goal of life, is to attain the highest. However we understand it, self-realization, God-realization, and this is the really, when we say ultimate goal of life, it doesn't mean there aren't other goals. We have many subsidiary goals of life, but this is the final end. If we think of a river, we have a river coming from the Himalayas coming out. There are many goals. It wants to reach this place and that place. It'll irrigate this land and everything. But the ultimate end of it is to reach the ocean. So this is the ultimate goal of life, is that we want to find out what it's all about, who we really are, what is our relationship to the divine, to have that highest type of realization. So we take this resolve that we'll be very serious in our spiritual practice, that this is an opportunity we don't want to miss. This human birth is a rare thing, and we want to try our best to have that ultimate realization in this very lifetime. Now, we don't know when it will come, how it will come, why it will come, but we have to have that faith that we'll do our best. If we don't get it here and now, the time of death, we're promised that by Holy Mother. So these are some of the few things, the sankalpas, these resolves that we take, and it's based on one main idea, that we can change. Sometimes we wonder, these samskaras are so strong, that can we really change ourselves much in one lifetime? Sometimes we feel that I'm the same person I was. I've been doing spiritual practice for 50 years, that I still have the same faults that I had before. I don't see much change in myself. But these are very subtle things, and sometimes we're not the best judge. Other people can say, no, we see you're quite a different person than you were before. We don't have to see it ourselves. Holy Mother gives that nice example, that someone falls asleep in their room, and while they're sleeping, somebody takes their cot, puts them on the train, they take them to another city. They say when that person wakes up, will they realize that they've been moved at all? No. And then one day they'll look around and say, oh, look where I've come. So we have to have that feeling. This Gita, sometimes we get this impression that we're all slaves to our personality. That what can nigraha kim karishati? What can self-restraint do? That we're bound by our swabhava, by our nature and this and that. But at the same time, he's always talking about have this resolve, that we have to practice self-control. Thakur, he'll talk about, oh, there's no free will, everything is God's will. At the same time, he'll say, no, have firm determination. That we have to take a vow, we have to really strive hard. All that means that we have some degree of freedom and will. We have to accept that. Otherwise we become defeatist. What can I do? This is my nature. We can't say that. We can say that no, I recognize this as part of my nature, that I want to change, I want to deal with this, I want to improve. So we take that type of resolve.
Swamiji?
Yeah.
Pranam. Some people, people like to receive truth even if they are giving falsehood. Why is that?
Say that again?
People like to receive truth from others,
Yeah.
even when they are giving falsehood to them.
Yeah, this is human nature, that we have very high standards with regard to other people, very low standards with regard to ourselves. We should be the opposite. Actually, I believe in a spiritual double standard. I'll give a couple of examples. Say this idea of karma. If I suffer from something, then I'll say it's my karma. What can I do? I must have done something to deserve this. If you're suffering from something, I'll never say that. Oh, this is your karma. You deserved it. It's very hard-hearted to say something like that. So with regard to these standards, yeah, somebody else, they tell a lie, say, they must have some reason for it. We be a little lenient, a little charitable. With ourselves, we say, no, I can't do this. I know better. I can't do that. So it's a natural tendency that we give ourselves a break and we're stricter with other people. We have to try to reverse it and be a little bit compassionate with regard to other people, a little bit tough with ourselves. Not negative, that we're always beating ourselves up. We don't want to do that. That's a very harmful type of thing. But we want to recognize that, yeah, I actually had an opportunity to be kind to somebody. I had an opportunity not to say something nasty when they said something nasty to me, but I didn't do it. Let me try next time. And then we try next time, we say, oh yeah, I feel better. There's no reason. We get angry at somebody, then we suffer twice. We suffer what they said, and we suffer it at our own end. Yeah. So this is how we practice this reflection.
Swami, that's right. But if the person carries on and on, it can get on your nerves too. If they're playing the game.
Yeah.
You can be what you're saying fine the first time, second time, third time, but they have made a pattern of playing this, then it can be, you have to put a stop to it.
We don't want to let people walk all over us.
Yeah.
No, that's true, of course.
Yeah.
So everything has to be looked at.
Force.
Yeah, so hiss. The Thakur said, it's like the snake.
Don't
Don't inject your venom, but at least you can hiss a little bit. Yeah, we have to protect ourselves a little bit. Yeah, it depends. See, the Swamiji says the householder has to protect himself or herself. The sannyasin can practice this perfect non-resistance. You hit me on one cheek, I turn the other cheek. Okay, that's not for the householder. The householder has to be a little bit strong. If somebody does something bad, we have to make sure that they don't do it. But when it comes to judging people, then we can be a little charitable.
But here, Swami, if we are attacked again and again for somebody, why to put yourself in that situation anyway? I mean, you can.
Yeah, we try to avoid the situation. Yeah.
It's that's you can if you can avoid.
But we can't always
If
do
it's
it.
not avoidable, then
Yes.
it's your neighbor who's bugging you all the time. You have to put a stop to it.
talking to him.
Yeah. No. So then we have to be practical and see how we want to do it.
Yeah.
We want to call the police, or we want to go there and tell them very nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you don't realize it, but when you play loud music at 3 in the morning, it wakes us up. And then if they don't do it, then
So there's one example that I have heard about, and that is like when you're driving your car,
Yeah.
your life is like driving a car, right? And you just stay in your own lane. And so, you do not judge other people for driving their cars because it's their life and they want to run it their way. So, that's where that.
But you stay out of their way.
criticism yeah.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you see something, then you pretty much get out of the way.
Yeah. Okay, so let me finish here just with a little quote from Swamiji about this idea, because sometimes we think that, how much can we really change in this lifetime? But then Swamiji says, to succeed you must have tremendous perseverance, tremendous will. I will drink the ocean, says the persevering soul. At my will, mountains will crumble up. Have that sort of energy, that sort of will. Work hard and you will reach the goal. So I thought for the beginning of the year, this would be something that would be nice for us to think about. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other last questions or anything?
Swami,
Yeah.
I went to India and see in one temple there is a competition to sweep the front of the temple. All senior sadhus, they are doing that. I told this place is so neat and clean, just like a Buddha Gaya, very neat and clean. Still, why you know God will be coming?
Yeah.
I told, where is the God? God is inside. He told, no, all the devotees are coming. They are the God. So the senior monks, that's the whole early morning, 4 o'clock.
Yes.
They sweep it.
Yeah.
And still they do.
Yeah. And there was an incident in